To my mic on. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Misericorde. I opened the game by accident because I got really excited. I was like, let's start, and press the button. That's alright, you can just chill. You don't need to watch the whole thing. I have made changes to my streaming setup. The game is now small and contained within the boundaries of a little box so that the chat and me does not obliterate it. Because there was a lot of good, important words on screen that I was covering, chat was covering. That's not the case anymore. And I fixed my chat window too, so the chat is no longer cutting off itself either. Hi, Jules. I'm back at it again with the fairy tale tea. I put the tea in the teapot. That's how you make tea. Only to discover that I now only have enough left for one more pot of fairy tale tea. So I wonder if we can get this game done in 3 playthroughs. That would be fun. I am just going to make sure everything looks normal. My links went live. Yep. How do I sound? Do I sound a reasonable volume? And can you hear the game? I know it's just like a very quiet sort of volume at the moment, but the music in this game is so good. A little quiet. Okay. Game and me are similar volume. That's funny. My levels are showing something different. But I don't want to get drowned out. So I'll bump myself up a little. I am also speaking quietly because I am making noise for the first time this morning because I only just woke up. Because last night I had the incredible idea of, you know what, I think I'll play a tiny little bit of Crusader Kings 3 before I go to bed. And that's like saying I'm going to breathe 1 molecule of air. It just doesn't happen. So I was up to 4 a.m. for no goddamn reason. And it's now like 11 a.m. I'm sorry, I said I would start at 10:30, but whatever, it's Easter. Everything's running on public holiday time. It is also Passover and Ramadan. Happy holidays, everybody. Just a little bit. Microdosing hyperfix, yeah. It's so easy. It's so possible. It's fun, it's cheap, it's free. It's cheap and free, yeah. How about we play this damn game? So you can see here that my latest save is actually from yesterday, and that's because I was just opening the game so I could tweak my layout, so that everything looks like everything. And I immediately saved over what we had gotten up to, but it was fine because there's autosaves because this is a well-made game, so it's fine if we can just go back to where we I was warned that the newest patch might mess up some save games. Okay, let's do some troubleshooting for just a moment. See if we can go back to Sunday. Nope. Okie dokie. Beta branch. Right clicking the game. Okay, yeah, so we can just roll back to a previous version, one before the patch. So there's still going to be some of the typos that we noticed, but that was not a big deal. And so we just play with the typos. It is. It's just patching. I love this. I said I would check this, and then I played Crusader Kings last night. I'm streamer of all time. Come on. You can't even see this. I'm watching a graph of something downloading. World's most guy. I'm the world's most guy. Thankfully, it's just a very small patch because this was just for like typos and stuff, so it should be fine. Here we go. Get those beta blockers working. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Cool. So, does everybody remember what just happened in the game? That game is loud. I know even less about audio than I do about video, so I'm sorry about that. Yes, we are playing as Sister Hedwig, formerly an anchoress, meaning she lived most of her life in a bricked up cell in the wall with one window, doing nothing but reading and copying books. She's got some issues, because it's the 15th century and people came pre-made with issues, let alone after being shoved in a hole. She has been pulled from her cloister, her little, I don't know if it's called a cloister. Hashtag girl boss. The world's first girl boss is here. She's going to solve a murder, and she is going to have multiple panic attacks as she does so, rationalizing them through the humoral system of medicine. The tiger is out, and she has been released specifically to solve a murder. The murder of the only person who she ever really had a rapport with, because part of her role as anchoress was to kind of a reverse confession, I guess you could call it, because she was like a member of the clergy. You couldn't see her, and you could come up and you could talk to her through the hole in the window, but she would give you advice. She wouldn't just be like, oh, go in peace, my child. Sorry that you jacked off again. It's cool. And also never got around to realizing that she wanted to fuck. Yeah, it's the 15th century. That's a very difficult concept for people to wrap their heads around. But we are in a convent full of some interesting ladies, and I think some of them perhaps have figured out that sometimes, you know. Oh, do you like my shirt, by the way? I was like, I need something that's like Catholic. Look, I got a big heart with a knife through it. Darcy knows. So that'll bring us to a recap of the characters we have met so far. We have met, well, the murdered girl is Catherine 2. Catherine with a C. I'm small. My shirt. Where am I? Shirt. Yeah, shirt. The murdered nun was Catherine with the C, also known as Catherine 2. And we are currently investigating everyone she lived with. Starting with Catherine 1. Well, actually starting with the Superior, who is a Mother Superior, and, you know, kind of acts like one. I don't know, like she's exactly what I was expecting. Then we have Catherine 1, Catherine with a K. She likes to have fun. And she thinks Hedwig's quite funny and annoying. But, you know, sort of a pleasant laugh at you kind of person. She's got her friend Margaret, who is a very stoic, poker face type. Two of them like to get into mischief. Thus far, that seems to mainly be trying to break the organ so they don't have to sing hymns anymore. Maybe they get up into other mischief. Then there's Darcy. Darcy is Welsh, and she rules. She's an alchemist, which is an alchemist that just sort of does whatever, and then drinks whatever she creates. She's high off her mind. She's great. Her best friend is Eustace. Eustace is a librarian. She's got big cute glasses, and she could kill every duck in the world. Following that, we have Adela. Adela gets really into chess, and sort of makes up some interesting combative homoerotic metaphors about it. She was born in Spain, and she's very hot. After her, we have Sister Charity. We have not spoken to her much at all. She seems nice. Her name is Charity, and she's literally the almoner. There's Sister Marta, who's old and has an eye patch, and she called one of the other nuns a wee cunt, I think. You can hear my cat yowling. He's off bedroom parole because I've cleaned the curtains and he hasn't re-pissed on them. So he's welcome to come in, my boy. You can come in as long as you remain continent. Apologize for the yowling. He does like to make noise. The young nun whom Sister Marta called a cunt was Flora. Flora is 19. She hates being here. She likes to work in the cellars because it means she can be alone. She's 19. There is also Sister Moira, who's Irish. She's lovely. Can you hear my cat yowling? Because it's quite distracting to me. I'm sorry. I will attempt to ignore noises that you can't hear. Just come hang out here. You can. I'm making eye contact with you. Yeah, here we go. Hi, buddy. Are you gonna come up here? Are you gonna jump up in front of the camera and show off your fat little ass to everyone? No, I don't think so. Let's see. Nah, he's not in the mood to be picked up. I think Moira is the final nun. She's Irish. She's the closest thing they have to a doctor without there being a man here. Thank God for that. Oh, and there's also Angela. Angela is, I think, pregnant. And she just absolutely hates Hedwig. For some reason, I think she's just not happy because someone she knows was murdered, and also she's a pregnant nun in the 15th century. I think that's everyone. Hold on, he's approached the curtains. Okay, good news, he didn't piss on the curtains. Bad news, I think he just disappeared. He's a black cat. I'm a goth. So, like, sometimes he will just lie down on things that I own. And he will just stop existing. But that's alright. He is a little wizard man. But speaking of mystics and grand wonders of the world and people who wear only black and white, it's time to return to the Abbey. Linbarrow Abbey. I wandered around the halls for a bit, trying to gather my thoughts. Adela was certainly passionate about chess, but was that really what that conversation I had walked in on had been about? Oh! Has Hedwig finally put 0 and 0 together and figured out that lesbians exist? Surely Adela had been here long enough to know that Flora didn't like being bothered. She had made that clear to me immediately, after all. It must have been something more important than that. I think it was of vital importance. No, this wasn't going to work if I started looking for reasons to suspect everyone every time I encountered them. See, Hedwig and I are playing two different games. Hedwig is playing a murder mystery game where she is the detective. I am playing... I don't know what I'm playing. I'm playing a visual novel gaydar. A kinetic novel gaydar, where I have no options, so I can't even steer her towards, moments of lesbianism. Or, as Flora said at the end of last episode, romancing oneself. Greatest detective in the world. Grew up in a hole, and soon she will finally figure out the greatest mystery of all. Girls can kiss other girls. Wow. I was going to need to strike a careful balance between searching for the answers and letting them come to me slowly. I'd go mad otherwise. Hedwig, I am so sorry to be the bearer of bad news. You are already, in need of medical assistance for your mental health. She might not actually even know what sex is at all. Now hang on. No. The Bible gets weird. There is sex in the Bible. You don't want to be reading the sex letters in the Bible, but it's in there. Okay, well, good news. She knows there's something wrong with her. More mad. That's step one, my friend. I stepped onto the outside path that led past the kitchen. I walked past the rectory where we'd all met for luncheon. I followed the little path around the grounds. I love these photos. I know the dev lives in America, but is originally from the UK, so I hope they went and took these themselves and, you know, had a fun time looking at some historical buildings in the UK. Eventually, I came to the side of the chapel. I stood back and gazed at the building, taking it all in. Rocks. There was a pile of rubble next to the chapel, a blemish on an otherwise picturesque scene. Hey, I like rubble. Sort of adds character. But I guess in the 15th century... I was gonna say that was when old things were invented, so there was no reason for there to be rubble yet. Guy who was awake. Bits of splintered wood stuck out at odd angles, but they were rotted through. The stone itself was quite weathered as well. It looked perhaps as if an extension to the church had been planned, but forgotten. New conspiracy theory. No, that's not even a new conspiracy theory. Oh my god. Do you know about those people who think, like, Charlemagne didn't exist and there was, like, several hundred years of European history that, like, weren't real because nothing important happened? Like, that's, like, the most insane, up-your-ass, I don't know anything about history conspiracy theory I've ever heard, but I have heard of it, and... Dudes who are obsessed with, 1, Rome, and 2, World War II, like, will just cut out bits of history that they don't think matter. Anyway, we're having fun, we're looking at an old building. Suddenly, out the corner of my eye, I noticed movement. Oh, hello there. Yes, Sister Margaret! Hi, Margaret! Ah, Sister Margaret! I was just taking a stroll around the grounds. That's a good way to pass the time. Lots of nooks and crannies to explore around here. Oh yes, it certainly seems it. I find myself quite overwhelmed. I think I might know most of the interesting passages and doors and whatnot around here. It's a little boggling. But honestly, I doubt anyone here knows every little secret. If you find anything interesting, let me know. We can compare notes. Oh, I will! What's your favourite? Lots of nooks and crannies! Cranny does sound like it should be, like, not great slang for old lady pussy. Like, I'm just gonna put that out there. That's what it sounds like it should be. I don't think I know you well enough to share them just yet. Oh, wait, no, we're making the same noise. Nothing against you. We can work up to my favorite. I could tell you my second favorite, if you like. Oh, go on then. If you ever get hungry in the middle of the night, there's a secret way into the stores through the cellar. Really? Where? Now. Where's the fun in that? Hi. Fair enough, I suppose. It'll mean more if you find it yourself. Exploring this place is very enriching. You'll have a great time figuring it out. I promise. Oh, I'll keep that in mind. But by the way, at luncheon, I would like nothing more than to skip over whatever topic you were hoping to breach here. Oh, right, yeah, the soup, because they call the superior that, the soup tried to introduce Margaret as being their first foreign oblate, and then multiple people were like, I was born in Spain! That's a different country! And, it sounds like the superior doesn't know where Margaret is actually from. Being visibly non-white in a 15th century English Abbey probably means she's not had fun conversations about this before, so that's likely what she's talking about here. Ask me what my favorite psalm is, or if I play any instruments. Anything else? Do you play any instruments? I'm not too shabby at the lute now that you mention it. Oh, fuck yes! Yes! Can we put together like a band night? I want to see a nun shred on the lute so bad. Wow! I've never played any instruments. I imagine that's obvious, come to think of it.
You should try it. Catherine would have shoved one into your hands the minute you stepped out of your cell if she was still here, I'd wager. Really? Now, that's more or less how it was for me when I got here. Hardly a minute after having my hair shorn, she was asking me all kinds of things. What I like to do, what I wanted out of life. Nobody got past her without trying something new. Murdered for trying to start a band. Sounds like she was murdered for being just so cool. She sounds like such a nice person. And we had such a fun conversation with her in, like, the opening part. They did a really good job making this mystery compelling because we got to know the victim, and the victim was someone that we, like, really liked. She sounds like she was very inspirational. And she certainly had the stars in her eyes. Jesus, Margaret! I'm just taking a screenshot of that. That's a statement and a half. May she rest in peace. May she rest in peace. Well, this has been as pleasant as it's been maudlin. I'll speak to you later, Hedwig. Until next time, Margaret. Happy Easter, everyone! Catherine is just like, Jesus, surreal, she got murdered for being too much of a bad bitch! Jules! She gave me a quick bow of the head and continued off down towards the path I had come from. After taking another good look at the chapel, I looped around behind it. There I could see rows upon rows of bushes and hedges, flower beds and vegetables. There were vines crawling up the walls of the building surrounding the vast network of plants. This was Darcy's domain, then. Oh, there's Darcy and Eustace. Look at them hanging out. Okay, you are very much permitted to blaspheme. You are just blaspheming in ways that I have never heard before. You are inventing new ways to talk about Jesus. Damn, Darcy got mad tits. In fact, I could see her and Eustace besides the door to what looked like a large shed, some sort of hall. Looks like the secret garden. I picked up my pace. At the very least, these two would be nicer to me than Flora was. Or so I thought. Eustace looked slightly irritated when she noticed me. She stood up and brushed herself off as I approached. Hello, I just wanted to say thank you for the gate. They had a dessert called Gay Lead. Now is not a great time. What? Is something wrong? No, just... I'm busy. I glanced at Darcy. I realized she was looking even more out there than usual. Oh, Eustace is trip-sitting. Is she okay? Yes. As long as I'm watching her, anyway. What is she... Darcy was pacing around in a small circle. Her head was tilted skyward, and she looked blissful. She's having a vision. She's what? Rows of bookshelves. Rows and rows of bookshelves. Rows and rows and rows of bookshelves. Hold on. Eustace dipped down to pick up a small ledger and quill she'd been sitting with. Oh, font change! Hold on. The reader chooses a book. It is a book the reader has not read before. The reader chooses a book and opens the book. What's in the book, Darcy? Ink lashes like flame, and they hurt the reader so. And the reader pays no mind. Readers read, and read, the reader does. Until the reader's eyes are burned, until every page is turned. Readers read, and read, the reader does. Yes, keep going. Stay with me, Dash. How can you be so calm about this? She's had this one before. Readers read, and others ask. We ask readers what they read. What if they read what we need? Reading makes one wise indeed. Readers read, and others ask, even if the flames do lash. Eustace scribbled all this down. She seemed perfectly collected. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. All of a sudden, Darcy stopped walking in her little circle. She began to wobble, and tears started rolling down her cheeks. Her blissful smile was gone. This is new. What do you see now, Dart? What's happening? Fire! Yes, flames. You said that already. Anything else? Goat! Fire! Goat! Fire goat. I forgot what I was talking about. Just another one of your visions. I'd say that tincture was a success. Oh, good. Was it a nice one? It's hard to tell. She touched her face and looked slightly surprised by how damp her cheeks were. I know, right? Satanic imagery. Hedwig's gonna go crazy. It's like, you're seeing goats. We gotta strap you down and pour water on you or something. I don't know. Oh, that was a mistake. I didn't know how long she was going to be talking for. It's not even like my throat is sore. I was just expelling too much air and now I've got a hand rush. It is hilarious to have goats as a symbol of evil. 2 days ago, I went to the Royal Easter Show and I got to pat baby goats. Oh my god! They're the cutest little animals. They're so sweet. They're so, like, excited to be here. And some of them have beards. I did see the quilts. There were some really good quilts. There was a beautiful one made up of Stars of David, like, tessellating in different colors. That was really cool. Oh, Tom's there right now. I hope he's having fun. I was, like, fully overwhelmed just by, like, 3 p.m. Like, we got there at 9 a.m. I went with Canteen, my grief support group. Yeah, it's so much, and there's so many people there. There are some good spots, if you can get to them, to just sit down and relax. Like, if you go to the Flower Pavilion, that's a good spot to not be sensory overloading, because there aren't that many people there either, because nobody wants to see the Flower Pavilion. I did take us some quilt pics. Don't worry, Jules, I will show you quilts. I got ice cream. I had a fun time. I got my chip on a stick. Yeah, the Flower Pavilion is, like, really small. It's like it's like after the quilts in that same building. I was like, let's get back on topic, but I mean, this is the sort of thing nuns would talk about, I feel like. You see the quilts? Chip on a stick. Any Australian event, anywhere, will manifest a chip on a stick van. And them shit's good. All he knows is be lesbian, eat chip on stick, and play nun game. She touched her face and looked slightly surprised by how damp her cheeks were. Was I crying because I saw the face of God and it was beautiful? Or was I crying because it was bad? We'll talk about it later. Darcy, how long have you been having visions? Oh, for a long time. We really need to be going. You need to go sit down for a bit. I have to remember one of my vision tinctures. Reverend says, stay too odd. Shabaya, I'll talk to you when I'm less odd. You got the munchies, Darcy? You want to go lie down and watch some Star Trek? Eustace took Darcy by the arm and coaxed her back towards the main building of the Abbey. I stood there stunned. I had, of course, read about mystics, but I'd never dreamed they would meet one, let alone see one in the middle of having a vision. I must admit that I had not pictured Darcy as being quite so close to God as that. It was a little humbling. Then again, if Marguerite Kemp could be so gifted, why couldn't Darcy? I don't know that one. I know some mystics. I'm a big Hildegard of Bingen fan. I spent some time alone in the garden. I could see rows of carrots, juicy-looking squashes, and plump parsnips. I fucking love carrots, man. I'm gonna have carrots for dinner. I've just decided. Oh, and I made a really good meatball sauce last night. It was just like tomato sugo, like passata. Fresh basil from my garden, because I have successfully managed to keep a plant alive. A little bit of thyme, onion, garlic, and then just some meatballs I got from Woolies. It was nice. Nice and herbaceous. There were plenty of other things I didn't recognize too. I realized just how limited my diet had been in my cell, and I salivated at the thought of trying some new food. Real shit. I do live like Hedwig. I will eat the same food for like weeks on end just because I have it and I know how to eat it. Does that make sense? Like I don't have to expend the mental energy on like getting my brain around a food. Because I place a lot of importance and value on food and cooking, but I think part of that might contribute to how emotionally exhausting I can find it. This is a weird topic. I do have a cooler bedroom. I have a velvet chair. It's holding up quite well despite the fact that Prince will sharpen his claws on it constantly. But I mean, it looks fine despite that, so I'm not getting mad at him for it. The peeing on curtains are a more important thing we need to address. The flower beds were quite beautiful, and a mix of pleasant smells filled the air. I took a little stroll through the flower bushes. There were all manner of colours and shapes that I couldn't identify. I stopped to smell a few. They were all lovely. There was one awkward, spindly-looking bush at the end of one of the hedgerows that looked out of place. Oh, are you having a little moment of symbolism? Are you feeling a little empathetic? It was slightly skeletal. The leaves looked too big for the plant. It drooped a little. As I got closer, I realized there were little berries on the ends of the flowers. Against all better judgment, I reached a hand out, curious to see what they tasted like. Okay, are you ready to join Darcy in seeing God? Don't touch that. Oh, goodness, you made me jump. Sorry. I wondered if you were still in the garden and came looking for you. I'm sure it's all very exciting, but don't go touching things willy-nilly. That was very rude of me. I apologize. It's fine. Just don't touch that plant, whatever you do. Is it poisonous? Extremely. Why on earth is it here? I'm no botanist, so I can't explain it properly, but the short of it is that it's useful in small doses. It might be nightshade. People... yeah, Jules! Both of us are like, what's the cool poison we know? How on earth could poison be useful? They used to do that thing where they would put drops of nightshade in their eyes to make their pupils wider. That was definitely making them high. Moira says it can be used to make a good painkiller, for one thing. It was Catherine one who begged Darcy to start tending it, though. Apparently it's all the rage in Italy. I think it might actually be nightshade for real. Ah! I'm the mystic now. I've got visions. I know what's up. I know that thing about how people used to put nightshade in their eyes to make their pupils dilate. And I know why Catherine 1 wanted her to grow that so bad, because that shit gets you high as fuck. And I guess, yeah, as a painkiller, that makes sense. You drop a little bit of the extract in your eyes to make them look bigger, I suppose. Shinier. That's absurd. You won't get any argument from me, but that's why it's here. Darcy really does a wonderful job with this garden. Oh, she's brilliant. Darcy's our little Hildegard. I haven't mentioned Hildegard von Bingen before. I know nun things. Methodists. We know things. Actually, I'm not Methodist. I just went to a Methodist primary school when I was a little kid. I think my family is Presbyterian. But Methodist and Presbyterian are two of those things where it's like, well, do we really need to be two different denominations? Von Bingen. Sorry, is that someone you... Oh no, don't worry. I've read Hildegard. Oh, that makes sense. An expert with plants and a real visionary. Darcy's like her in several ways. That's right. Is she, you know, doing well after all that? She's fine. She tries to have them on purpose. She has all sorts of different concoctions she's been tinkering with to try and enhance and understand her visions for years. That's incredible. It's certainly interesting. Did Darcy know Catherine very well? Catherine too, you mean? Yes, she thought Darcy was a genius. Oh, how nice. I think it's cool that Eustace isn't being a bitch to Hedwig today. Yeah. I think Eustace and I are similar in that, like, any amount of stress and we immediately become an absolute cunt. But if you're not stressed, if you're not trying to trip-sit your friend, if you're not being made fun of for your ability to fight ducks, then you could be chill. Catherine, too, had a way of making everyone feel special. Sometimes to a fault, if you ask me. She encouraged everyone to try new things, to see if they had any hidden talents. That pudding you made for luncheon was very nice, by the way. Was that... Oh no, that recipe's all me. Oh, well, all me and my books. Oh, I see. Well, it was delicious. I'm glad. Anyway, my point is, Catherine, too, was someone who couldn't leave well enough alone. She had many admirable traits. I miss her dearly, but it's true. I don't follow. Eustace stared at me pointedly from behind her large glasses. Hello, you're being handed clues on a silver platter. Be careful, Hedwig. With that, she turned on her heel and left the garden. Beads of cold sweat were building on my forehead. I felt knocked entirely off balance. After a few moments of stunned silence, I staggered back through the flower beds towards the abbey. It's a little chilly outside now. It's getting later in the afternoon, and I presume the dinner bell would be ringing at any moment. Eustace's words were still bouncing around in my head. I hoped that a meal might straighten me out the way luncheon had earlier in the day. Yeah, you're probably deficient of... Well, it's the 15th century. You're all deficient of something. As I walked through the cloister, I remembered what the superior had said about the sword being left as something of a monument to Catherine. Murder weapon time! I stepped onto the cloister grass and walked up to the sword, somewhat apprehensively. Be careful, Hedwig. What had she meant? Did she know? Oh, shit. The sword was indeed clean. It looked well weathered, but there was no blood upon the blade. I dared not touch it, but I could tell the edge was still decently sharp. Sharp and heavy enough to decapitate someone, though? Because you need a significant weapon to do that. And I guess we would have to see... You would have to check what the wound looked like, because if it had been hacked... This... I know it's just a drawing. I don't think this is a sword big enough to, like, cleanly go through someone. Unless... Unless... I don't know. I don't know, but that is, like, something you would have to consider. Be careful, Hedwig. How many of them knew? If Eustace suspected I was up to something, surely she would tell the others. What if it was cut off with a different blade? See, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, this one doesn't have blood on it. It's a thin sword. You would want something like an axe. That's how they did beheadings. Or a guillotine, but that's not been invented yet. And thinking about, like, medieval battles, people didn't, like, get their heads ripped off, like, with a single stroke of a sword, you know? Like, they would get, like, you know, their airways severed if they were getting chopped at the neck. They would get their spinal cord severed if they're getting chopped in the neck. They're not getting, like, decapitated, you know, like it's Conan the Barbarian or something. The secret might already be out there. I heard a rustle of wings above me. I jerked my head up to see. Cloaked in shadow, the barest hint of eyes. Oh, what the fuck is that? Oh, are you having visions now, girl? This is weird, but sometimes when you go through a traumatic event, you will see people looking at you when there's nobody there. And that's okay, because sometimes you've spent 20 years in a hole. Maybe a lot of people you love have just died, or something like that has happened. And sometimes you turn and you see something looking at you, but there's nothing actually there, and that's fine. But also, maybe it's a nun looking at the murder weapon that you're standing next to, because that feels like something that would also be very happening. They disappeared into the shadows as soon as I was sure they were there. Because she did see someone standing on the hill looking into her room, like, the night before she was taken out of her box. And I feel like it would make perfect sense for these to be hallucinations, or for somebody to actually be looking at her. And I really like the way the story is, like, working with this, because, like, either of those answers would seem satisfying to me. They both seem likely to me, and they both seem like they would have a significant impact on Hedwig. It's okay to have visions, but, like, she's in a situation where you really want to know if there's actually a person. Like, yeah, somebody has been murdered, and you are standing next to what is assumed to be the weapon. It is a weapon! Feeling a sudden rush of bravery, I started running towards the nearest staircase that might lead me to whoever had been watching me. Oh my god, you're gonna run up to them? And collided directly with Angela. Oh, great. She looks heavily pregnant. I'm, like, kind of distressed about Angela. Like, I'm legitimately worried for her. I am so sorry. There is to be no running in the halls. Did the superior not tell you that? No. I really am sorry. Huh. What are you in such a hurry for, anyway? Well, I was in the cloister, and I thought I saw someone watching me, so I was running to see who it was. What on earth for? To see... I don't know if they want to talk to me, perhaps? Of course. No one here seems able to resist your riveting conversational skills, I've noticed. What an exciting first day you've had. Has it been fun? Being paraded around like a daughter the Duke is desperate to marry off. She's definitely a noblewoman who got pregnant out of wedlock and just got, like, shunted off to this abbey, away from everyone and everything she's ever known. That's her problem. I'm betting it. Spare me. I see right through your little act. I don't know. Well, I do. I know exactly why you've joined us all of a sudden. I'll take your silence as confirmation. You may have tricked the others, but I am no fool. If that's the case, then why haven't you told them? Because I do not care a whit what the others think. I just don't like meddlers, and I know a meddler when I see one. The superior may not care about how this place is run, but I do. She's the prioress. She's second in command. I will not let her entrust this place to a complete outsider. What? I was at a total loss here. At least now I could be honest to my confusion. You think I'm to become the next superior? I'm not even close to the most senior sister here. As if tradition matters here. Why else would you have been let free from your cell? Why else would you be taking meetings alone with her? I'm just learning to be the new chronicler. Yes, the superior seems to think chroniclers make good superior material. She is a fool, but a determined fool, I'll give her that. She cares a lot about this place. Clearly. Hence why she set a mouse loose in the kitchen. She stalked past me, turning her nose up. Yeah. She has hang-ups about no longer having any sort of, like, worldly rank. I'm just diagnosed with rich. Please don't give me any more responsibility. Yeah. That's fair. Like, Hedwig has already been given the enormous responsibility of existing as a human being on planet Earth, when previously she didn't have to really worry about that, so I think she's got enough on her plate. I stood there shaking with anger for a moment. Uh-oh. I wheeled around as she reached the bottom of the stairs. There's something wrong with me. I'm seeing a heavily pregnant woman having an argument on stairs, and I'm like, something very bad is about to happen. Who killed Catherine? I know I shouldn't have asked so bluntly, but I felt confident enough in Angela's ignorance to barrel ahead. James Foreman, a nasty little stable hand who had his eyes on her ever since he first started making deliveries to the Abbey. She rejected his advances, so he hacked her head off with a sword he carried in his cart for protection on the road. It was brutal, random, and obscene, like most crimes are. I cannot believe that. You never met her. Why do you care? It is my job to care. Not yet, it isn't. I was fuming, but I did feel a little twinge of satisfaction realizing that I'd thrown Angela off my real reason for being here. No, but then you just put her back on the trail by yelling who killed Catherine. Though I guess she's, like, mad enough that she's just going to keep going around in circles and entrenching herself deeper into the belief that you're there to be the soup. I knew she was wrong about Catherine, though. There were too many strange things going on. Too much unsettling evidence to the contrary. Evidence like... Well, I didn't actually have any evidence, did I? I just heard whispers. Whispers telling me that something was very, very wrong here. I had agreed with the superior out of a mixture of obedience and pity, but now I was itching to find the truth. Rub Angela's stuck-up face in it. Vision thing. back in the refectory. Supper that night was a lot more subdued than luncheon. We all gathered around the rectory table, but the conversation didn't spark the same way. People seemed worn out from the various tasks of the day. Small clusters of chatter broke out between little groups of people across the table, but mostly people ate their meals in silence. I was content with this state of affairs, at least for the moment. My plate was laden with wonderful-looking food from Darcy's garden, as well as a generous piece of chicken breast. I wolfed it all down in silence. Yeah, chicken breast and vegetables. Nice simple meal. Hard day's work, meat and 3 veg. I wolfed it all down in silence, trying to avoid contact with Angela, who was seated next to the superior at the head of the table, once again, because she's the prioress. Sisoli's book on chess is supposed to be quite interesting. Oh, so I have heard! Eustace, do we have a translated copy? In English or Castilian, I mean. I'd have to check. I'll take a look and give it to you in the... Give it to you later. Spectacular! They having some late night rendezvous. Oh, in the Misericorde! They're going to hang out in the Misericorde where some of the rules don't apply, obviously. It's the name of the game. After supper was Vespers. You'd be glad to know I didn't cough up any horrible black bile in the chapel this time. I am glad to know that, Hedwig. I'm happy for you. We chanted the evening prayers. It all felt very regimented. There was a certain peace to the proceedings. My head felt pleasantly empty and soft afterwards, free of confusion and rage I had been alternating between earlier. Yeah. The peace of ritual is like one of the best parts of religion. I'm no longer religious, like any sort of organized religious, but I still maintain that having regular rituals in life is a very important thing for your mental, spiritual, social health. Ritual good. When the office of Vespers was concluded, people trickled out of the chapel one by one. Left to my own devices, I wasn't really sure what to do. Especially metaphor-laden rituals. Especially for us, yeah. I followed everyone out of the building into the cloister, but nobody turned to ask what I was doing, if I'd like to join them, or anything of the sort. I felt like I had already ceased to be of any interest to the congregation. Invisible. Oh. I trailed behind everyone. I wasn't actually sure what I wanted. Did I want to be included? Would that make my job harder or easier? Would it make me feel better or worse? I'm just checking something. Now, when it came time to accuse one of them of the unthinkable, I looked across the cloister and stopped dead in my tracks. The sword was gone. I ran across the grass to where it had stood. It had been right here. I had seen it. I had nearly touched it. The sword is gone. Hello? Hello? I called out, but everyone had dispersed already. I looked down at the grass, and then with a jolt, looked up at where I'd seen the mysterious figure earlier. They weren't there. I stared at the slight divot in the grass where the blade had been stuck into the earth for a little while. The superior. She had to be warned. Oh, fuck. Now someone's just running around with the sword. Superior! Mother Superior! The door yanked open suddenly. Get in. Now. Are you quite mad? I was sent for you when I'm prepared to talk. If you've seen coming in and out of my office at will. I know, I'm sorry, but this is really important. You're putting both of us at risk. I apologize, but I'm making careful preparations so as not to rouse suspicions. Someone's taken the sword! The superior furrowed her brow. The sword in the courtyard, it's gone. I saw it there this afternoon and now it's missing. I know. You... Huh? I thought about what you said after luncheon about leaving a weapon lying around and decided you were completely correct. It was more than a little ghoulish. I told our sacrist to take care of it not long after you left. Eustace. Yes. She's in charge of all the relics and items of interest here. Not just the books. Yeah, items of interest. Silicor, yeah, just running around with a sword. I want to show these 15th century nuns Star Trek. I think they would like it. I think they would enjoy a lot of the social dynamics of the crew living on a spaceship together. Well, what if she's the killer? She has a wicked blade now. I know this is like 15th century. It's like, oh, she's got this horrible evil weapon, but it's like, nah, she's got a sick fucking knife. A sword that she could have gone and collected whenever she fancied, were that the case. Hedwig, leave the strategizing to me. There is nothing whatsoever suspicious about an abbess asking her sacrist to keep an object under her care. It makes absolutely no difference in the grand scheme of things if Eustace is involved or not. She would have access to the blade either way. Now, if the blade turns up missing, or God forbid gets used again, she will be the first person to call on. Please trust that I do think about these matters carefully. I like to play at least a few moves ahead. Moves ahead? What does that mean? Play chess, girl! Come on! Chess.com! Chess terminology. Have you played chess before? No. I'll have Eustace No, that's going to a dealer. I'll have Eustace loan you Sisoli's book on the subject. It's really very interesting. I was well and bloody tired of hearing about chess, to tell you the truth. That's really what it's like when you're online and there's like a new show or like game or movie or whatever that you do not care for, but everybody won't stop talking about it. And it's like, shut up. Shut up. Anyway, you should go. If anyone asks, I was checking up on how your first day went. How did your first day go? I took a deep breath and raised my finger in the air, ready to let it all out again, like I had in my previous meetings with the Superior. However, I thought better of it in the end. Fine. All things considered. Fine. Good. Good. Angela doesn't trust you. Now there's the shock of the century. Anything else? No. Very well then. I shall send for you when I'm ready to speak on these matters again, and to take you to visit the accused. Understood, Abbess. Have a good night, Hedwig. I left. I trudged up the stairs back to the dormitories. Pulled my robes a little tighter around myself. The wind was picking up outside. At the top of the stairs, I could see Eustace and a dealer walking through the halls, holding torches and lighting the sconces on the walls near the entrance to the dorms, the library, and the Misericorde. I was somewhat surprised. Oh my, who's going to be awake to snuff all those out later? We typically only do the ones up here. This hallway gets a bit of traffic at night. The dorms, the library, and so on. And the Misericorde. Do not worry about fires, though. We put them all out before we go to bed. I nodded absent-mindedly and continued towards the dorms. I had a long day. The energy I'd received from the bath had almost been entirely spent. Oh, the perfect bath and the big oak tub under the stained glass windows. Ooh. Oh, it would be so good to have that bath. I had no idea what the other nuns were planning to do with their night, but all I could think about was my bed. I swung open the door to my little room, flopped face first into the straw mattress. My head hit the pillow with a thunk. Oh, really? What now? I flung my pillow aside to reveal a book. It had no title or adornment on the cover. Oh, fuck, this is the play Catherine was going to give her. It's Medea. Whoa, what the fuck? Oh my god. But when I opened it, I was greeted by a lovely illuminated title page. Medea. Transcribed proudly by Catherine II of Grasmere Abbey. Okay. This is Linbarrow Abbey. But obviously, nuns will change abbeys. They'll move. But Catherine II was already Catherine II before she got here. But Catherine I said that the two Catherines had a friendly competition about which Catherine got to be which. Okay, also, yeah, true. Insane thing for a nun to transcribe, like straight up proudly. But like, there's a hole in the Catherine maths here. How was she Catherine II before she got to Linbarrow? For the enigmatic woman in the wall. May she find this most interesting and edifying, despite its pagan origins. With apologies to Hesidius and Euripides in kind. I'm just going to sit here with this as a concept for a while. This is such a thing to be happening. I began to weep first, and then sob. Here it was, the play I had been promised all those weeks ago. Medea's the one where she, murders her husband and their kids to, get revenge on his family. I cradled it in my arms. I dared not turn past the title page yet. There was something that kept me glued to those words. What if she lives in the walls? Darcy said this place could be haunted. Little words that had been written just for me. Catherine's handwriting was a little scratchier than mine, but it was full of character. I touched the page gently, running my finger across the page to feel the slight indents where the quill had pressed into the parchment. She hadn't broken her promise to me in the slightest. I thought back to that night she came to my window. How soon after that had she died? How long before Samhain had she planned to give me this? I knew from experience that transcribing anything was no simple task. A whole play, with the illuminated title. Even if a play was much shorter than a Bible. It's a whole play, and there's a lot of line breaks and stuff. Oh, what a strange mixture of elated and despair I felt. I had a special gift from Catherine, but I would never be able to share my thoughts on the story with her. I was left with precisely half of an experience, and I would never ever live the other half of it in all my days. Oh my god! Jesus, dude! It would have to do. Just knowing that Catherine had made this filled me with joy. As I dried my tears, I wondered, who had brought this here for me? Nobody knew that I had spoken to Catherine, surely, unless she had told someone while preparing this book. I mean, it says for the enigmatic woman in the wall. I don't think there's more than one of them. I think they had one lady in the wall, and it was Hedwig. If there's more of them, that would be weird. I feel like maybe Eustace, she's the librarian, she looked at this, she knew, you were talking about Catherine with her. Maybe. Did I have a secret ally? Maybe it was the soup. Someone carrying out Catherine's last wish beyond the grave? Or perhaps Darcy had been right, and I was about to meet a friendly spirit. Told you, Darcy said it was haunted. I fantasized for a few moments about reading Medea alongside some sort of transparent, flickering vision of Catherine for a moment, but it was too sad to keep up for very long. I didn't even know what Catherine looked like. And, well, ghosts don't exist, of course. I put my pillow back in its place and settled down. I couldn't read the play. Not just yet. The whole thing was just sinking in still. I clutched the book to my chest and drifted off to a much-needed sleep. I awoke with a start some time later. I felt hot and uncomfortable as I rose from my bed. I was too tired and overwhelmed earlier to think of removing my habit before drifting off. I carefully slotted the copy of Medea under my bedsheet and stepped out into the dormitory hall. Hello? Is everything all right out here? I spoke in a loud whisper, not wanting to wake anyone who may have also been trying to sleep. Old habits die hard. I got no response, however. I peered out into the second-floor hallway. The sconces were still lit, flickering somewhat in the wind. Up ahead, I could hear a door closing. People were still awake, it seemed. I sighed deeply. Was this the hazing the Superior had mentioned this morning? Flora, is that you? Margaret? Catherine? I could hear faint laughter coming from somewhere down the hall. Curious, I crept forward. They're in the Misericorde. They're hanging out. I could definitely hear laughter and talking, and what sounded like a lute being strummed. Oh, fuck yes, we all gotta have music night! As I walked down the hall, the sounds got closer. I realized they were coming from the door next to the library. The Misericorde? I frowned. It sounded like there was a raucous party taking place behind the door. I was confused and a little hurt. I vaguely knew about the concept of the Misericorde from some of my reading. It was a room where the rules of St. Benedict were lifted, and oblates could partake freely in red meat and pork and other delights forbidden to us in the refectory on certain holidays. Only half the congregation was meant to be allowed in at any given time, and yet it sounded like a full-blown banquet was happening behind this door. They're having a party without you, and today was no holiday? Well, it's Easter Saturday. That's a big one. I know it's not the biggest in Easter, but it is. It's Easter. It's Eastering right now. Go have some meat. I really wasn't part of the group, was I? I had half a mind to barge in, but I turned around, startled. At the end of the hall, illuminated by sconces, was a tall figure holding a sword. Oh, fuck, what is happening now? A black goat stood next to them, held by a rope leash. I wanted to scream, but I felt paralyzed. The figure wore black robes. What the hell is going on? The figure was cloaked in what looked like a nun's habit, only longer, and without a white wimple or cowl. They stood taller than any woman I had ever seen. Slowly, the monster lifted their sword towards me, pointing with the blade, and as it glinted in the fire, I realized they were wearing a large metal gauntlet. This fucks! I took a step back. But as soon as I did, the apparition at the end of the hall thrust the blade they held into the air. With a rumbling rush of air, all the sconces in the hallway blew out. For a moment, everything was pitch black. The figure's sword was suddenly wreathed in flame. I could see once more. This creature and their pet were an even stranger sight, lit only by a flaming sword. The reader reads. In the red light of fire, their eyes glinted with an unholy sense of menace. Shadows danced through the hall as the mysterious figure slowly lowered their weapon again, bringing it to rest against the ground. After a moment, they dropped the leash they had been holding in their other hand and raised a finger to their shadowed lips. The goat stood still all the same. Assured of my silence, the apparition lowered their hand to the sword's handle. I didn't dare move or make a sound. I was absolutely in their thrall. Me too. Now gripping it with both hands, they lifted the burning sword high into the air. Firelight flickered around the hall in an eerie pattern. Goat noises. And then they beheaded the goat in one swift motion. The fire was snuffed out, and I was plunged into purest darkness. It's very seasonal. Yeah. Unable to bear it anymore, I finally screamed. I don't want to scream. I did... I heard booming metal boots against stone. Fearful that it was the beast bearing down on me, I turned to flee, but got tripped up on my habit. Oh yeah, you're wearing a giant, long, woolen mess. I stumbled to the ground and knocked my head against the stone so hard I could see stars. I groaned in pain and struggled to find my bearings, but I was quite dazed. After a few moments of scrambling, I realized there was a thin strip of light next to me in the darkness. As the sound of chairs scraping was heard, the shadows began to pass over the bright line, and I recognized it was candlelight leaking from underneath the Misericorde door. There was some panicked fiddling with a latch, and the door finally swung open. A few of the sisters huddled around me. Adela was holding a candle, and looked by far the bravest out of the group. "Hedwig, are you quite all right?" "Whatever is the matter?" "There's... intruder!" I lifted a hand weakly to point down the hallway where I had seen the ghastly apparition. Adela took a few steps in that direction, but I lunged forward to grab her frock. "No, they're armed!" Armed? Yes, there was a monstrous figure at the end of the hall, carrying a sword. What? What should we do? Marta and Charity appeared in the Misericorde's doorway. "Excuse my awful hearing, but did you say you saw someone with a sword?" "Heavens above! I thought we were done with that sort of nonsense." Adela had tugged her robe out of my grip and was cautiously walking down the hall. I dragged myself to my feet and made to follow her, the rest of the sisters who had spilled out of the Misericorde in tow. "Tell me everything that happened, Sister Hedwig." I heard someone knocking on my door, and when I stepped out to investigate, no one was there. So I left the dormitories to see if they'd gone down the hall, perhaps, and then I saw someone at the end of the hall, carrying a weapon, and with a goat in tow. Hold on. A goat? Yes, and then they raised their sword, and the torches blew out. Crumbs, I would have been scared out of me wits. I was. I still am. What happened next? I'm dying to know. I suppose it must have been a he the more I think about it. He lit a sword of flame and beheaded the goat. But not before pointing straight at me. A threat was leveled against me directly. Beheaded a goat, you say? Yes. This is a rather strange story, Hedwig. I understand, but you must believe me. We had reached the end of the hallway, which split in two directions. A large door to the surrounding wall of the abbey was open to our left, wobbling slightly in the wind and creaking softly. Where did this swordsman kill the goat, Hedwig? It would have been, well, here. Just about. I just around myself in a circle, but as I looked at the stone floor, I realized there wasn't a speck of blood to be seen. Yeah, it was an astral goat. Obviously. Are you feeling quite alright, Hedwig? You must have been seeing things. No shame in it, mind. There's all sorts of odd things I've convinced myself I've seen in the dark. And you're in an unfamiliar place and all. No, I saw it. It happened right here. Everyone was looking at me with a mixture of concern and annoyance now. Can we go? It's bleeding cold out here. Adela's candle blew out. Everyone yelped. The door had been easing back and forth, and the nighttime air had suddenly slammed shut in the wind. The noise echoed throughout the hall with a bone-rattling power. Oh man, I love it when there's like a group of people in the dark. Christ almighty! I just about took my poor heart out. Is everyone all right? I was quite shaken myself, but I soon realized that everyone else was chuckling. I'll admit it. That was a pretty good one, Hedwig. A good? Absolutely fiendish. You are a very convincing actress. I was truly bewildered. In the darkness, I could just barely see Marta clutching her chest and catching her breath, but she flashed me an approving smirk. Catherine was attempting to center herself with deep breaths between exasperated chuckles. Adela's face emerged from the darkness in front of me all of a sudden. She had her hands on her hips, and she was looking at me in mock fury. We must watch out for her in the future. What's going on out here? We heard screaming. My eyes were slowly adjusting to the darkness. I love the cute little cowl. Some of the sisters had emerged from the dormitories, some wearing nightclothes. Nothing to worry about. Hedwig just scared us all witless with a little prank. Prank. Ooh, do tell. She gave the most convincing howl to draw us out to the Misericorde, and then cooked us up an ingenious story that led us down here and kept us occupied until the door slammed shut. Gave us all quite a fright. No. Oh, that's good. What did you use? String? Use? Not a trace of twine here. She must have known it'd bang shut sooner or later in the wind. Lucky guess. Hence the cock and bull storytelling once we got here. You can spin a yarn, Hetty, I'll give you that. Hetty. Not half! But that's impressive, Hedwig. Hello, what's all this then? Are we having a party in the hallway? The rest of the sisters had caught up. I'd realized that nearly everyone was here. Catherine, Flora, Adela, Marta, Charity, Margaret, Moira, Darcy, and Eustace are all clambering around me in the hall, engulfed in an orb of candlelight. I think I did get everyone in my summary. All except... Where's Angela? Probably busy seeing if she could fit an even bigger stick up her backside. Who cares? Consider it a mercy she isn't here, honestly. I'm not sure she would find this so funny. I swallowed nervously. The narrative that this has all been some grand prank of mine had taken hold so hard and fast that I couldn't possibly push back against it. A happy accident, I suppose, given that it was clear as day. There was no blood at the end of the hallway where I had seen the goat beheaded, and no mysterious figure waiting for us brandishing a sword to chase. We should probably get you back to bed, lest the Superior find out you've been organising practical jokes in the middle of the night. Yeah, she's been a bit touchy about that sort of thing lately. Oh. Yes, although I expect she was more worried about us hazing the newcomer, rather than the newcomer hazing us. I don't understand what you think the connection between Medea and Angela is. Oh, that reminds me, Hedwig, do you like my prank? Your prank? Everyone looked at her as we walked back to the dormitories in a huddle. Yes, I knocked on your door and then ran back to my room. Well, we don't even know that she's rich yet. That's just like my idea. I think it has more to do with Catherine, just in general. I don't know. A small titter rose up from all the sisters. Dearie me. Oh, silly. You just didn't want me to, but I did anyway. I was mostly worried you wouldn't make her back without being caught. And faster than a look. Or knocking something over. It was very funny, Darcy. You gave me quite a scare. I forced a smile as best as I could, but inside I was screaming. Were the knock and the horrid apparition two separate events? How was that possible? It was hard to accept, although... Not half the one you gave us! We had arrived at the Misericorde door, still hanging open into the hall. I feel like the Medea thing is separate to Angela. That's my thing. We'll see which of us is right in the end. If we even figure anything out in Volume 1. Flora, shall we continue our game? I had you retreating, if memory serves. Actually, I think you might have accidentally knocked over the pieces in the confusion when we heard Hedwig scream. No! Ah! Oopsie daisy. I think I've had more than enough entertainment for the night and shall retire to my dormitory. We say that. Oh, likewise. Well, at the very least, no one needs to worry about snuffing all the torches out before bed. Everyone murmured in agreement. The group migrated back towards the dorms. Everyone was yawning by now. A few people said their goodnights to each other before retreating into their rooms. I mimicked these pleasantries as best as I could, but my mind was completely elsewhere. I wanted to grab someone, anyone, by the shoulders and scream at them that it hadn't been a prank, that I really had seen a goat slaughtered in the hall, and that any missing evidence was obviously the work of some witchcraft. I had half a mind to stop Darcy going to sleep and ask her about what she meant when about the Abbey being haunted. Or perhaps more importantly, tell her that her vision had perfectly predicted what had happened. Goat, fire, goat, forgot. I stood in front of my door, arguing with myself, before finally sighing deeply and stepping inside. My mind was racing, but I couldn't ask anyone to keep pace with me now. Not only was it quite late now, but I had narrowly, miraculously perhaps, avoided being branded a lunatic thanks to a lucky gust of wind. I flopped onto the mattress. I stared at the ceiling for a few moments, trying to work my breathing back down to a regular pace, trying to unwind the tight strings I could feel around the front of my mind. Rationally, I knew that I should sleep. Yep. Even after spending a significant amount of the day resting, I was dead tired. Yep. But how could I? What if they came back? What if they came here to... I really was tired. I was very, very tired. Achievement prankster. Okay, I think we're gonna just take a quick break here. Get rid of my tea, go to the bathroom, maybe get something to eat or drink. Hold on, we'll just let this load back in so I can save the game. There we go. Save here. Yep, I will be back shortly. See you soon. Righto, I'm back. I got my beloved blue Gatorade. I love a drink that's blue. I also got chips, but I'm realizing that's the loudest fucking food I could have gotten. So I will eat those afterwards. You got distracted by chess? God damn, it happens to the best of us, doesn't it? Probably won't keep going for much longer. Maybe like another half an hour or so. Hold on. I just want to check something on Steam. Okay, we've only got 6 out of 17 achievements. It looks like we get an achievement every time we complete a chapter. So we've got a while of this game to go. And I'm glad, because I don't want to leave this world just yet. I'm looking at some of the achievements. One of them is called Party Hard, and one of them is called Scandalized. One of them is called Catty Behavior. I'm so excited. There's so much stupid bullshit that's going to be happening at our little nunnery, our abbey, our monastery. There's a lot of words for the places where nuns live. I'm just going to quickly post that we're back from break. Okay, let's get back into it. We save. Yes, we did save. Okay, return. After what couldn't have been more than an hour, I awoke with a start and a yelp. After a moment, I realized I was sitting straight up in bed with my fists raised. Sleep may have taken me, however briefly, but I suppose I could at least take some comfort in the discovery that I would have been ready if any attacker had made their way into my room. Just bolt upright, ready to fight. Whatever good my skinny fists would do against a broadsword, at least. So it is a broadsword. It was dead quiet, save for a light whipping of the wind and a few crows in the distant woods. My eyes adjusted to the darkness after a few moments. I steadied myself, and then crept out of bed, sliding my nightgown over my head. I wasn't going to be able to sleep, not until I could be sure I was safe from whatever horrid creature had menaced me earlier. I placed an ear to the door, just to check if my little squeak upon waking up had alerted anyone. Silence. The stone walls between us were quite thick then. Carefully, I opened my door. Mercifully, it wasn't excessively creaky. While there was a little moonlight leaking in through the threshold to the landing, it was far too dark to go exploring without a light. I remembered Eustace and the others had been holding candles when they came to check on things earlier, so surely there must be... Aha! I hadn't spent much time in the dormitory's main room. Sure enough, there was a pricket holding a slightly droopy candlestick resting on the simple mantel above the fireplace. Oh yeah, so this isn't just like a hallway, it's like a room. Because this was the era where rooms were both hallways and rooms. Like, if you have ever been to any of the, like, palaces in Vienna or something, you will go through, like, this weird maze where you just walk through, like, an incredibly important person's bedroom to get to, like, their, like, chambermaid's room to get to the main hallway, and it's like, where are we going? Yeah, so rooms and hallways is similar things at this time. I held a hand in front of the iron hearth cover. I couldn't feel much warmth, but I had to try. The cover was quite heavy. I did my utmost not to make a sound as I pulled it out of the way, just enough to peer into the fireplace itself. Sure enough, a little gust of warmth billowed out. The fire had been banked with ash, just as I had done many times in my cell. Carefully, I stretched my hand into the fireplace to brush some of the grey dust off the embers before touching the candlestick to it. Eventually the wick took, and I had a little light all to my own. I nearly dropped the candle in surprise. A noise had come from one of the adjoining bedrooms. Has it now? Is there a noise from one of the adjoining bedrooms? Terrified, I scrambled out of the dormitory as fast as I could, just as one of the doors swung open. I held a hand over the candlestick's flame in an attempt to hide the flickering light. I could hear hushed voices carrying out of the room into the hallway. Oh my god, it's Eustace and Darcy. Of course it is. Darce! Darce! Wait. Where did I put the candle? Oh, I don't know. Damn it. I've got one here, hang on. Give it here, then. Honestly, what are you like? Very talented and smart. Not what I was thinking at this particular moment. What's wrong? Nothing. A moment later, I could see orange light emanating through the threshold into the hallway. My breath was shallow and ragged as I tried to stay quiet as possible, and I was still turned at an awkward angle to hide my own candlelight. Come on, then. Yeah. Sorry, I thought I heard something. Maybe it's just a ghost. Just be careful what we joke about. Who's joking? Eustace had no answer for this, and turned away from the landing, back into the dormitory. I heard a few footsteps, and finally a door closing. As stealthily as I could, I left my hiding place and scurried down the hall. As quietly as I could manage, I moved through the hallway towards the spot where the apparition had emerged. I held for a moment as I passed through the Misericorde, straining to hear if anyone was behind the door, or passed by the Misericorde. If there was, I couldn't hear them. I continued onward, my heart beginning to beat out of my chest. What was I doing? The way I saw things, I was in danger no matter where I was. No, you're just having a panic attack. That thing could either kill me in my sleep or catch me out in the halls. I was woefully unprepared for neither scenario. Perhaps more importantly, I had a wicked sense of curiosity about the whole situation. I padded over to the spot. I was sure I had seen the figure behead that poor creature. Just as before, no blood. The large door that had given us all a start was still closed, now merely wobbling gently in the lighter wind. Slowly but surely, I walked towards the door, scanning the floor for any signs of blood. There was nothing. I reached the large wooden door itself. Presumably the swordsman would have had to have left through the doorway into the night, to disappear after their hideous ritual. Curiosity got the better of me. With some trepidation, I slowly pushed open the door, hoping that its creaking wouldn't echo down the halls too loudly. I wedged it open just enough to slip through myself, but not again. The force of the door closing blew out my candle. Still rattled from the sudden sound, I retreated from the doorway. I stood in near pitch darkness once again, although this time I felt more irritated than terrified. Pale moonlight leaking through the main hallway was all I had left to navigate with. I held a hand against the wall and slowly walked back the way I came. The windows running along the hallway that looked down into the cloister finally came into view, so at least I had some inkling of where I was now. Heading away from the confounded door, I could see the path back to the hole that my old cell was located in. I stood for a moment, taking it in. I felt a supernatural pull toward that old hallway. As I stepped closer, however, I could hear a strange whistling sound. I felt a chill run up my spine and decided that I would actually much prefer to be in bed after all. Oh, you don't want to go back to your old cell? See what's going on there? The supernatural pull. I headed back to the hallway to the dormitory, past the library and Misericorde. Out of the corner of my eye, however, I saw a black shape below the landing. There was someone in the cloister. I held my breath and watched as the figure paced around the grass. Their head was down, and I realized they could not yet see me. They were looking away from the landing, although at what I could not determine. My heart pounding once more, I hid behind a pillar and poked my head around to watch. Ah, now you're the mysterious figure on the landing looking down at the cloister. Reversals, reversals. The figure stood still for a few moments more. A part of me I had never met bade me stay and observe, too curious to escape just yet. Just who, or what, was this monster? With a dramatic turn, they suddenly left the center of the cloister and disappeared into the shadows around the edge of the lawn. At first I squinted to try and make out where they were going, until a far more intelligent part of me realized this creature could be heading up the stairs. I crept onwards as quickly and quietly as I could, back to the imaginary safety of my bed. It was far too strange out in the halls at night. You're just wandering around in the dark looking at shit. No wonder you're getting freaked out. I made it back inside my small room without a peep. I let out a deep, relieved sigh. As well as feeling terrified, I felt a little embarrassed. My first investigative venture had ended without so much of a hint of a clue. But I was also terrified. I got onto the mattress once more, but I dared not shut my eyes. Instead, I sat facing the door and removed the candle from the pricket I held. The pitiful metal spike would have to serve as my weapon if that ghoul came to my door. Getting stabbed by one of them little candle holders. Have at thee! Fuck off! They did not appear. Ah, it worked. I sat like that all night, clinging steadfast to my weapon and going over everything in my head. Before I knew it, morning came. I dutifully leapt out of bed and dressed as quickly as I could. As I pinned my cowl together, I mused over the best way to face the day. No, days ahead. I furrowed my brow and concentrated as hard as I could. Yeah, she's got to think about this whole new, future that she never thought would happen to her. That's a really difficult thing to do. The mist that had been lingering in my mind since the superior snatched me out of my cell was evidently there to stay. And if I were to make any forward progress on the task at hand, I would simply have to deal with it. Ah, she's got medieval brain fog. First of all, for the health of my own soul, I would strive to attend all services and meals. Sure, okay, that's a good goal. no matter how terrified I was. However I may have embarrassed myself on the day prior, it wouldn't do to give up on ingratiating myself to the others. And more to the point, now that I was no longer an anchoress, this is how I would maintain my worship. I could not compromise on this any further than I had already. Mysterious demonic figures be damned! That a girl. I would not let evil win. I had broken a sacred oath, but I would slip no further. This fear that I felt, the danger that I faced, so be it, I thought. Yeah, sometimes you will be terrified, and you will continue to be terrified, and you just have to keep going like that. Secondly, Angela was the only sister who didn't show up last night after I screamed. It's quite possible that she was fast asleep, or simply didn't care. But it was, at the very least, something I could follow up on for whenever the superior next asked if I had any leads. There's plenty else swirling around in my head, but it would have to wait. Hello. Just checking. I opened the door to see that Eustace had already turned to leave, apparently satisfied knowing that I was up and about. Darcy saw me and gave me a friendly wave before following her bespectacled friend. A few of the others were shuffling out of the dormitories and into the hallway behind her. They seemed not to have noticed me at all. In the chapel, I tried to find myself a spot in the pews that was neither too close or too far away from the others to be noticeable. Oh man, that's a real struggle. What is the normal amount of distance between you and people you kind of know? What are you doing over here all by your lonesome? So much for that. I smiled weakly at her as she sidled in next to me. Service itself went well. I threw myself into the worship. Did you throw up? Stop throwing things. But I had a lingering feeling of shame that I could not shake during prayer. Between breaking my oath and interrupting a service by vomiting all over the place, I was increasingly worried about my standing in the eyes of the Lord. I worried as hard as I prayed. Perhaps harder if I'm being entirely truthful. It was with some relief that the liturgy ended when it did. The warriors had been winning out for most of the service. Breakfast consisted of a thin, warm oat pottage. Nothing wrong with a bit of old-fashioned porridgey stuff. It was interesting watching the others eat. For the first time, I felt like I was seeing some of my fellow nuns less than completely put together. We're just like slamming porridge into their face. Little pieces of conversation floated around the table, but for the most part it was a quiet affair. There was nothing for it. Sister Angela? What is it, Sister Hedwig? What did you get up to last night? I slept. I tried to ignore the snorts and giggles that arose from the others. I turned bright red and returned to my meal. So much for that avenue of investigation. It's true, I'm sure. She sleeps like a log. Catherine then leaned over her plate and whispered to me in such a manner that ensured everyone could hear. Don't worry, Hedwig. You'll get her next time. When everyone had finished eating, the superior stood to address the table. Everyone shifted in their seats to look more alert. All except for Angela, who had already been sitting with her back perfectly straight throughout the entire meal. My posture. I've got to fix my posture. I'm not going to get in trouble from the Mother Superior, but my spine is going to attack me. Hedwig, Eustace, if you'd follow me. Angela, clear up if you would. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Abbess. Angela made a show of rising to her feet. Of course, Abbess. I could feel her staring daggers into my back as Eustace and I followed the superior outside. She led us inside, toward the stairs to the second floor of the main building. Where are we going? To the library. Eustace is going to help you get started with your work. Oh, yes, of course. I was the chronicler now, after all. I realized as we crested the stairs that I didn't actually know what that meant. Bro, you chronicle. I have my own work to do, just so you know. I am sure Hedwig will only need your assistance with the very basics. Oh, fuck yeah, library. Old-timey library. The library was a very odd room indeed. I had pictured it as a regimented hall with organized bookshelves lining the walls, perhaps with a long table in the middle for a shared reading space. In reality, it was certainly a room with bookshelves and a table, but it was as if someone had squashed the idea in my head to fit into the second floor room. The table was off kilter. The books were scattered across the shelves, seemingly at random. Oh yeah, this is before they had like any standardized method of like organizing books. Like this was eons before Dewey Decimal, but like they wouldn't even do them like by author. They would just like maybe sometimes in order of acquisition they would be on the shelf, just like whatever's newest you just put on the end of the shelf. It's weird. It isn't much. It's wonderful. I could see Eustace raise an eyebrow out of the corner of my eye. I suppose she had expected me to balk at the state of the room, but I was thrilled to be in the presence of so much scripture again. Not only that, but there was something about the disorganization that spoke to me. It certainly had the most charm of any of the rooms beyond my cell I'd visited yet. You surprise me. Thank you for the vote of confidence. It is rather topsy-turvy in here. I have a system. Have I ever lost anything? I suppose I cannot argue with results. That's right. Anyway, this desk in the corner, this was Catherine's. You'll be sharing the space with Eustace often, I imagine. I see. It's so fucked to like constantly be sitting at a dead person's desk. But you know, just like constantly interacting with like spaces where someone should be but they're not. I was led to a little desk in the corner closest to the hallway door. Tomes. Big thick tomes. I hadn't noticed it when we'd walked in. The whole thing was obscured by a pile of books and folded up documents. It was almost like I had my own little room with walls I could peer over. These large books are what you'll be writing in. And I will be writing the events of each day previous, as well as details of any important correspondence. It's reminding me that I'm behind on my journaling. Oh, right. Of course. Chronicling. I tap my forehead in an attempt to make a knowing gesture. Eustace will sort through any mail we receive and put anything important on your desk to be noted. Then you can pass the documents to her for filing. I have a system. Well, if you have any more questions, I am sure Eustace will be happy to assist you. I must go and make my rounds with other sisters before attending to my own work. Eustace and I gave bowing nods to the abbess as she left the room. As soon as the door was closed, Eustace shuffled over to her own desk on the opposite side of the room to mine, with its own piles of bric-a-brac threatening to topple over any minute. I drummed my fingers on the desk for a moment before reaching for one of the massive empty books the Superior had indicated. I opened it up and marvelled at the blank pages. For the first time in a while, I felt like I was back where I belonged. That is, until I picked up a quill. I soon realized that without scripture to transcribe, I was a total loss confronted with white paper. What should I write, do you think? That's your job, not mine. Yes, well, it's all a bit new to me now that I think about it. Would have thought you'd given it quite a bit of thought before deciding to leave your cell. Well, I wanted to say that I hadn't decided that at all, but I couldn't. Be that as it may, it is a little different actually being here. What are you working on? Cataloguing? What's that? It's something that's very difficult to do if someone is talking to you. Oh, I'm sorry. I sat in silence for a minute. I stared at the blank pages in front of me again for a moment, feeling a little stung. Go and read Catherine's chronicles. Look at the previous examples. Come on, I'll show you. I hadn't noticed Eustace walking over to my side of the room. She was looking over my wall of books with a no-nonsense expression on her face. I stood up, not wanting to irritate her any further. The library here houses a lot of scripture, obviously, but it also carries many other books and documents. For example, recipes, or songbooks. Over here we have a little chess section, a whole section for chess. Yes. I didn't intend for it, things just sort of ended up that way. How's that? Well, I have a small budget for procuring requests, and some people here got really into chess. I see. Let's see, some gardening books. Darcy reads those, obviously. Some history books. Tarot. What on earth is tarot? You know, fortune-telling? Fortune-telling? Who on earth has meddled with that kind of thing here? You'd be surprised. Nuns these days. All nuns know is chess.com, tarot, do weed, and die. I grimaced. The more I discovered about this abbey, the more it felt like it was occupied by a horde of Sarabons. Eustace ran her fingers over the spines of some of the books, clearly looking for something. Here's some classical stuff. Greek plays and so on, and histories. Yeah, it was all Catherine's department, make no mistake. Actually, she gestured idly around us with one arm. Most this place was. She read everything in here at least once, I'd imagine. Wow, that's impressive. Well, I've read all of it twice or more, but yes, it is fairly impressive. What's in there? I pointed at a door off to one side of the room, nestled between messy shelves. Ah, that's the other half of my job. She produced a ring of keys and inserted one into the door, fiddling with it for a moment before unlocking it with a loud clunk. Inside was another storage room of sorts. Oh, this is where they keep the interesting objects of note. Inside was another storage room of sorts, only instead of books, it was filled with boxes, chests, and what could only be described as a hoard of miscellanea. This is where we keep some of the Abbey's more notable possessions. We've got some relics. You have relics here. Steady on. Nothing particularly interesting. I'm actually not sure how many of them are real. Oh, it's a bit of a racket. Relics. You wouldn't believe how many people claim they have the holy prepuce in a vault somewhere. Holy prepuce. I'm not Googling everything that I see. Ah, hey, Hedwig just asks. The holy... It's best you don't ask. Oh, is that the thing where they think they have Jesus' foreskin? I know that is a relic that a lot of places claim to have. You did not enjoy Googling that? I think I may have been correct then. Yeah, Jules, you don't need to Google it. It is the thing that I thought it was. And now we no longer need to think about that. Jules, you do not want to Google the Jesus foreskin. But I'm sure if you plugged that in, you could get results. The point is, if you took every piece of the true cross on display around the world and put them together, it'd be taller than the Tower of London. And that's just the Christly relics. With saints, it's even more ridiculous. It's my job to confirm the provenance of the relics we hold here, and I'm not holding my breath for any of them. Well, what else do you keep in here? There's this fellow, for starters. She tapped the breastplate of a suit of armor on display in the corner of the little room. They've got a guy. My heart leapt into my throat. The glint of metal was all too familiar. What is that? Oh, I suppose you wouldn't know what it is, would you? Oh, no, I know a suit of armor when I see one. I was just curious if this one holds any particular significance. We've been holding it for safekeeping for the Receiver General of some well-to-do estate. What's a Receiver General? A well-paid bookkeeper. Oh. I hazarded another question that I hoped would sound casual. And you're the only one with a key to this room? What a responsibility. Your superior also has a key. She's got the keys for most things, I should think. That makes sense. In case one goes missing. Steady on. Maybe I have one in case hers goes missing. I glanced around the piles of assorted bits and pieces scattered around the room. I love Eustace. She's so defensive. She could fight every duck. She's defender of these holy relics that are not holy at all. She's got a suit of armor. Sorry. Gross noises. I glanced around at the piles of assorted bits and pieces scattered around the room. Of course. Anyway, that just about wraps up the tour, I think. Oh, are you keeping the sword in here by any chance? I noticed it was gone from the courtyard. It was there yesterday morning, and then gone after evening service. Eustace let out a ragged sigh and pinched the bridge of her nose. When she spoke, she had the unmistakable air of someone choosing her words very diplomatically. Yes, Hedwig, I am keeping Catherine's sword here. The superior asked me to move it. I am sorry. Let's go. We've both got work to do. She ushered me out of the little room back into the library. I skulked to my new desk, well aware that I'd overstepped some boundary. Yeah, you're asking about a murder weapon. Eustace sat at her own desk and began sifting through pieces of parchment. Occasionally she would scribble something in a ledger. From the sound of it, she was taking some feelings out on the paper. I tapped my own quill against the empty book in front of me. I hadn't the foggiest idea what to write, but I needed to do something. I suppose the date was as good a place to start as any. Excuse me, but what is the date today? It's the 11th of November. Thank you. Oh, fiddle. I wrote today's date, but I'm writing about yesterday. Should crush it out. Right. Okay. The 10th of November. On the 10th of November, well, a lot happened, didn't it? I felt a flash of inspiration when I thought of all the things I could write about my life. What the Superior forced me to do, how awkward I had felt being thrust into a double life. But of course I could not do that. I had to focus on the basics, which was harder than it sounded. How did Catherine like to write things? I do have my own work to do, Hedwig. I know, I'm not sure how to best write things down. Eustace kept scribbling something in her ledger, not answering. Could I take a look at her old chronicles, perhaps? See, that's what you gotta do. You gotta look at what you... Oh. No, you can't. Why? Because I don't have them anymore. Where are they? Why are you so intent on pestering me about Catherine? I'd started sniffling. I couldn't help it. I bit my lip and tried to control myself, but it was too late. Eustace kept writing in her ledger. It was so quiet I could hear a tear hitting the parchment on the desk in front of me. I wasn't trying to be a pest. Don't be so modest. You're quite good at it. I lurched out of my chair. The precarious pile of books on the desk wobbled, and I could hear glass shattering as I flounced away, sobbing uncontrollably. I fumbled my way deeper into the library. I didn't know where I was going. I just wanted to get away. Hedwig! Hedwig! Come back! I could hear her calling after me, but I didn't listen. I ran into the rows of shelves, not paying any attention to where I was going. Even if I had been, it would have been hard to see. I was bawling by that point, with my eyes scrunched up and full of tears. I stumbled around blindly. A few books fell off the shelves as I brushed past. I found a corner in one of the aisles and fell to a crouch, curling into a little ball and burying my head between my knobbly knees. It was all coming out. The embarrassment, the shame, the anger, and the fear. I'm not sure it was even Eustace's snippy comments that really did me in. Eustace was far less intimidating than a disappearing swordsman, but nevertheless, here I was. It really was quite dark back here. I couldn't tell how far I'd gotten into the bookshelves. The library had no windows. All light emanated from a simple chandelier above the desks and table. I tried to dry my face with my robe. It didn't do much, considering I was still crying. I felt quite pathetic. For a little while, I bumped around in the dark, hoping to just stay out of Eustace's earshot. It wasn't long until I staggered into one of the shelves, though, sending books cascading onto my head like hail. I yelped in surprise. Hedwig! I looked up to see Eustace standing above me. She looked quite worried. I'm quite sorry, Hedwig. Will you come back to your desk? Eustace crouched down next to me and took my hands in hers. She squeezed them gently. I shouldn't have been so rude to you just then. It's not your fault. It's okay, I understand. Let's go and talk about it at our desks, yeah? No, you don't understand. No one does. No one can. You're inquisitive because you've never been outside your cell before. It's really not your fault. I'm having a hard time with losing Catherine. I don't know how to handle questions about her. It's not just that. What else is there? I looked up at Eustace's face. It was hard in the dark, but I could make out a weary attempt at a reassuring smile flickering on her lips. Nothing. Nothing that I'd do to say now, I suppose. I'm all over the place, just in total. Eustace's smile grew, but she looked altogether sadder. She reached out to adjust my messy cowl, then stood up, guiding me back to a standing position with her hand. Come up. Up you go. Let's go back, yeah? I nodded, still sniffling. I really am sorry. I was being quite cruel. It's all right. Don't keep apologizing. You sound just like me. I laughed feebly at my own joke. I just wanted to show that there weren't any hard feelings, even if it was far too early to really know that. Eustace patted me on the shoulder and sat me down in my chair, and then adjusted some of the wobbly books back into a slightly less precarious position. That sure killed her, you know. That's why I was a bit touchy. Yes, the Superior told me as much. I was just curious because why was the sword left out there? In the cloister, I mean. It seemed so dangerous to leave that sort of thing around. Especially when it had just been used to... I can see why you'd find it strange, but I think there's a good object lesson for you here. You're not wrong that it's a little odd to leave a sword lying around. But that's because you're an outsider. Listen. Eustace's voice had returned to its usual monotone register once we'd gotten back to the desks, and she reached out to sharply tilt my chin up without a shred of tenderness she'd used amongst the bookshelves. Inside and outside aren't value judgments. We're all outsiders to someone. I dare say we both feel out of place in Persia. I see. You're saying I don't know the customs? Something like that. It might be something even harder to define than customs. History, perhaps. culture, community, groupthink. I didn't expect to feel this alone. We're all Catholic, after all. I think one of the first things you pick up on is how little that matters. I think I'm already there. Halfway, at least. I'm sure you had a very specific idea of what life was like for us when you were in your cell that is being challenged by reality. Yes, that's a good way to put it. Yet you're completely correct. Everyone here is Catholic. We're all oblates. And yet, after only one full day, I've already heard cursing, filthy jokes, and downright meanness from the mouth of my sisters. Meanness! I flushed a little. Not to drag out, fight out. I do accept your apology. That's alright. You're not wrong, but it also doesn't make anyone here less Catholic. Well, it certainly seems like not many people here are holding to the letter. It doesn't matter, doesn't it? No, I don't think it does. The church encompasses the world so wholly that it's very hard not to be a part of it to some degree. I'm not sure I understand. Do you like money? Truth be told, I've never held any money. Bad example then, perhaps. No, try to explain. You at least understand the concept of money, right? Of course. Do you think money is fair? I think money certainly creates an opportunity for unfairness. So in that sense, I think I'd say it's quite a bad thing. Well, okay, that was further than I was expecting you to go, actually. Well, that certainly happens a lot in the Bible. In fact, Eustace held up her hands and chuckled softly. No need to quote Ecclesiastes to me. I understand how you got there. I was going to quote Matthew, actually. 19:24. No, 6:24. Oh, actually, that's a great way to illustrate my point. Latin. Ye be not able to serve God and riches. Mammon. Mammon is riches. Yes, I suppose, a demon of riches. You think Mammon is a being? You don't think it's a metaphor? What's the difference? I've lived in a hole my whole life. Good answer, actually. Anyway, we both agree then that you cannot worship money and God. Of course. But we are nuns. We tend to the poor, theoretically at least. Would it be wrong for the poor to covet money? Covet, I think, is a strong word. But they are poor. Poor exists because rich exists because poor exists. They're opposite ends of a spectrum that governs their day-to-day lives. How could a poor person not covet money? Food, clothes, shelter. Things provided by lords who have a lot of money, which is provided to them by kings, who have even more money. I know. I'm loving real communal communism hours here at the cloister. So you're saying that everyone worships riches. Nobody is truly Catholic. No, I'm saying that money is as essential as air to people who want to live in this world. And when money is scarce, the church provides for them. We provide for them by extension. You know money is evil. You understand the inequality money inherently causes and the ways in which the Bible describes this. Yet if you were to leave tomorrow, if you struck out on your own to live a life in London or what have you, how would you, without money? Who would ever provide for you but the church? I'm afraid I don't quite understand. The church is air. If nobody here was Catholic, none of them could breathe. I didn't really know what to make of this. Eustace has certainly practiced this expression of her worldview, but I didn't fully understand what she was talking about. You see, Hedwig, the history of the world is the history of class conflict. The Catholic Church is so deeply ingrained into Western society that it is physically impossible to escape it. Particularly because I was still slightly dazed and over-emotional, but more because it sounded very convenient. This is a very dim view of the church and faith. Does that make sense? I understand what you're trying to say, at least. Well, I'm glad I did it some justice, at least. Catherine's version was a lot clearer. That was something Catherine said. Paraphrased, but more or less. Catherine could talk about 3 times longer than I could on the subject. We've lost a comrade. Most subjects, to tell you the truth. I tend to ramble. I'll have to think about all this. So it is a most interesting opinion for an Abbey's chronicler to hold. Eustace had turned to walk back to her own desk. Like I've already told you, Catherine was a very interesting person. I should have liked to have met her. She sat back down at her desk and began working in her ledger again. The same old Eustace had fully returned. It's a shame her chronicles are gone then. I could learn a lot from them, it sounds like. I picked up my quill and began writing. This conversation had certainly been illuminating. Inspiring even, though. Well, not in the sense that I wanted to write like Catherine. To tell you the truth, I couldn't believe Eustace was relaying whatever Catherine's opinion had been fairly. It certainly did nothing to shake the idea that I was in the midst of a group of Cerebites rather than Benedictines. So I felt that, for now, I should chronicle things in as uplifting and holy a manner as I could. I would log the daily activities, liturgies, mealtimes, and so on, and I would highlight the godly deeds I witnessed throughout the day. I reasoned that this would be healthier than listing decidedly ungodly things I noticed. I would search for the positive, as it were. But sometimes when bad things happen, you need to make a note of them. Because they're important. Are there any letters I need to transcribe in here today? Not today, no. Does much mail come through here? Loads. Who for? Eustace peered over me, her glasses witheringly. Most everyone, I should think. There isn't much else to do here. Who writes the most? You're being nosy. I'm just curious. You never know who has a gift for writing. It's Catherine, if I had to guess. Catherine 1, she's very popular. Really now? How interesting. I suppose. There's no accounting for taste. A thought crossed my mind. You sure there's nothing I could help with? Are there any letters that Catherine 2 was supposed to sort? I could take a look, if there were. There are not. Really? I've already taken care of any unopened mail in Catherine's possession. I see. In that case, I think I might be finished. Eustace rose from a chair and walked over to mine. She leaned over my shoulder. Holding her spectacles against the bridge of her nose, she read aloud. 10th November of the year of our Lord, 1482. The hours were observed in morning and evening liturgies. Luncheon was held in the rectory, as was supper. We actually had breakfast as well, but I suppose you weren't there for that. Breakfast before liturgy? Sometimes. Vacant position of dearly beloved Chronikerfield, rest in peace. That's nice. By myself. A kindness was visited upon me by Sister Moira. What was that? Well, she prayed with me in the bathhouse when I was feeling lost. Well, if it mattered to you. Is that all you're writing? For now, I think. I'll probably go a little longer as I find my footing. Fair enough. Catherine would fill a whole page, that much I can tell you. A full page for each day? Yes, sometimes more. You don't have to do it that way, of course, but you're asking about what her writing was like. No, that's very helpful. Well, what now? I have work to do still. You can do as you please. I think I might walk around and check in on some of the others. Maybe I can fill up pages hearing what others are accomplishing. Not a bad idea. I stood up to leave. Before I could step away, however, Eustace gripped me by the shoulders. She looked into my eyes with a gaze even more serious than the one she'd used in the garden. I need you to promise me something, Hedwig. Yes? Never go wandering around back there on your own. Can you do that for me? Back into the bookshelves. Not without me. I don't understand. She squeezed my shoulders even tighter. You can borrow anything you want from the library, of course, but I can't have you going back there without my assistance. Or better yet, just ask me what you need for you. Just ask me to get what you need for you. My organization system is precarious. Does that make sense? Not really. Library hungry, feed it nuns! Some books here are very, very important and very, very valuable. I've sworn to protect them, and my organization system is, well, precarious, as you have seen. It'd be a weight off my mind if I didn't have to worry about anyone else rummaging back there. Of course, I shan't touch anything. Thank you. I miss library monitoring too. That was a good time. That was fun. Remember that fucking ancient system of it? It was like straight up just like blue screen, white text, CS-DOS style shit where to like type in everything. Let me assure you, as the door closed behind me, I felt a flare of embarrassment. I was just treated like a total fool, I thought. I had half a mind to turn her back around and tell Eustace to stuff her sentimental stories about Catherine and show me the sword under lock and key. I didn't, of course. Thank goodness for that, honestly. No, I won't explain what I mean just yet. Ah, come on, you're telling a story a year in the future. Throw me a bone. Or a sword. Let me tell you something about that chronicler position. It might have taken a fair bit, but it did teach me a thing or two about spinning a good story. Yeah, our library organization system was so old that these nuns are using the same one. The cool air of the hallway hit my face hard after being in the stuffy library for so long. I could feel the damp patches around my eyes and cheeks where my tears had been drying. I wiped my face with my sleeve to try and erase any lingering evidence. You're just going to make your face all puffy. Oh, fancy running into you here! Hi, Moira. I like Moira. Moira was standing just down the hall, carrying a tray adorned with a small pitcher and some sliced rye. Moira, I reckon, would be the person that would be the most reassuring to know in real life. Like, if I was thrown into a situation like this and I met a Moira, I would, like, cling to her, because she's such a nice person. I was just on my way to bring you and Eustace some Nunchen. Is that luncheon for nuns? Nunchen? Oh, of course you wouldn't have had that before. It's just a snack between meals. Oh, I thought it was luncheon for nuns. Is that allowed? Allowed? Of course. Why wouldn't it be? I looked side to side nervously. For what? I'm not really sure. A disapproving superior? Or worse, Angela? Moira chuckled again and set the tray down on the stone railing overlooking the cloister, and then gestured for me to join her. The little pitcher was full of wine, and there were pieces of crumbly cheese mixed in with the slices of bread. Skyrim meal! You can dip the bread in the wine if you like. Oh, alright. I picked up the piece of the bread and dunked it into the pitcher. This is like speedrun communion. Putting Jesus back together. The wine turned it quite an odd colour that reminded me a bit of bile on flagstone, but I resisted lingering on it too long and popped it into my mouth. Sorry, I'm just wondering, like, what is physically up with Hedwig, where it sounds like she is throwing up blood. That's quite nice, actually. It's called sops. Everyone here loves it, more or less. And the cheese? Goat cheese! One of the ones Darcy takes care of. Tried a piece. It was also delicious. Yeah, that was my very first instinct, was that she had been poisoned. But, yeah, we were talking about, though, that something happened to her when she was a child that had her being an anchoress. Yeah, see, like, throwing up, normally, you're anxious. But you're not throwing up something that dark. Although, I guess as a nun, she is drinking a lot of, like, red wine, even if it's, like, watered down and stuff. The color is there. Yeah, the brain fog, etc. We were talking about it, though. There was probably some traumatic event when she was a child that had her, like, being forcibly interred as anchoress. So I wonder if she has an underlying medical condition. This might be a silly question. All this food, is it different from what I was served? I took all my meals in my cell, but I don't remember any of it tasting quite this, well, good. She's just, like, hungrier because she's, like, expending more energy. You can't think of anything that makes you vomit that color. Internal bleeding is what it's like. It's blood is what makes it that color. But I feel like if you are internally bleeding, you get within a day you are unconscious. Yeah, if it was a long-term thing, why isn't she dead? Yeah. Well, we do a lot of cooking with ingredients from the stores in the pantry, and we just have to make things last. Maybe you're just got unlucky most of the time. Things don't always taste as fresh. Also, she seems surprised. Yeah, like it's a new thing for her. She's not like a regular bile barfer. She did say that she had an excess of black bile, but she was talking about her melancholic personality. Or maybe, well, Oh, nothing. I was just thinking that maybe it tastes so much better because you're not in your cell anymore. I don't understand. Moira took a piece of cheese and chewed it thoughtfully. A new lease on life and all that. Nothing tastes better than freedom. My first instinct was to chide Moira for this comment, but I resisted. Instead, I chose to act the part and say something I imagined someone who belonged to this group of women might say. I would imagine Catherine disagrees that we're free up here. And I suppose, by that logic, eating outside the monastery would taste even better. I was actually going to say that a king's food must taste impossibly good. I was on my way to that conclusion as well, although I think we might have been approaching it from different angles. But I look the way you think. We should plan a picnic sometime, you and me. We should propose it to the superior. That's a lovely idea. Moira clasped my hands in hers and beamed. Oh, what fun it is always after someone new here. She let me go and lifted up the tray again. I must be getting restless, Eustace. Where are you off to next, Busybee? I'm not sure, actually. I felt like I should just sort of make the rounds, so to speak, get to know what everyone does around here. Grand. Darcy and Charity are busy in the kitchens right now, I think, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind you poking your head in. I'm sure someone's in the cellars around now if you want to learn about the wine. Oh, so many options. Go forth and explore, I say. Explore I shall. I smiled and bowed my head and excused myself to head downstairs. I just realized we're doing so much more speculating around the mystery of who Hedwig is than the mystery of who killed Catherine. Because, like, to me, Catherine's death is just, like, an out-and-out tragedy. I'm like, I want to know who did it, but I don't have any ideas. I'm just sad about it. Hedwig is just such a strange person, though, that I'm like, tell me everything about you. I selfishly opted against bothering the cooks while they were busy with something I'd be eating later, and instead headed towards the stairs. I made my way down to the cloister and through the downstairs hall. I decided that I might poke my head into the undercroft. Well, look who it is! Hello, Hedwig. Hello. Done with chronicling already? Yes, actually. Well, there wasn't much to write about yesterday, really. Wasn't there? Did you make sure to immortalize your grand prank? No. Really now. I'm surprised. I would have thought that was the whole point. Yes, how else will anyone know what happened? Well, I mostly wrote about the important things, the services, the meals, and so on. Those are the important things? Huh. Give yourself a little credit, Hedwig. I'll add it in tomorrow, perhaps. You should. Otherwise, we'll all forget about it eventually. Or pretend we forgot about it. That's right. In war, one must keep score, or so Adela keeps telling me. War? Relax. We are definitely not planning a counterattack to your door prank. Yes, we've just been discussing faith and whatnot. The Nicene Creed and its many subtleties. Oh, how interesting! Which ones? Huh? Which subtleties? Feel you okay? That suppose I wouldn't count that as a subtlety. That would be my contribution. What? No. Ow! I couldn't agree more, Hedwig. I have a habit of understating things. For effect, you understand? Naturally. The pair smiled at me, and I could sense they were politely ushering me onwards so they could continue whatever conversation they'd actually been having. I decided to press a little further, however. What have you two been up to today? I decided to see what the other work was around here is like, since I finished so early. Well, there isn't exactly much almoning to do up in this hill, so I've been helping out in the cellars. Oh, what have you been doing? Catherine and Margaret exchanged a glance. This, more or less. Not to sound like our dear friend Eustace, but that's a euphemism. Well, not entirely. If something needs lifting, they'll shout. They being Marta and Flora? Typically, yes. But more often than not around here, helping in the cellars really just means, well, nothing. Standing around gossiping, wandering around the cloister for a bit. And the superior doesn't mind this. Now, steady on. We wouldn't be telling you this if we thought you'd blabber on to her about it. I won't. I was just worried you might get in trouble. It's never really been much of an issue. Soup can't be everywhere. And let's keep it that way, Of course. Lovely. I knew you could be trusted. I've always said I had a good feeling about her, haven't I, Catherine? That's right, she has. I couldn't help but be filled with a gush of pride at this remark. Did my utmost to tamp it down. Aw. Well then, I'll just leave you to your important work, shall I? Until next time. See you at luncheon, Hedwig. I parted with a gracious smile and walked towards the corridor of barrels I'd found Adela and Flora in but the day before. Martha was standing next to an open cask. She was holding a wooden ladle, looking thoughtful. Hedwig. Finished upstairs already? Oh, yes, I am. I thought it'd be nice to get to know everyone's jobs a little better. Smart girl. Flora could learn a thing or two from you. I heard that. Flora's voice echoed from deep within the rows of the barrels. I wish I had like an echo effect. Good. I have her check inventory sometimes, especially if she's been acting up. I see. The barrel open in front of Marta smelled absolutely putrid. Nonetheless, she dipped her ladle into the dark liquid and raised it to her lips, sipping gently and furrowing her brow thoughtfully. Making vinegar? Is it supposed to smell like that? Truth be told, I haven't a clue. This is a slightly different kind of wine than I'm used to. I must confess I did not know there were different kinds. Oh, come on, Hedwig. It's sherry. Now that does smell intense. Adela pestered me into try and making it the moment she arrived at the Abbey. Goodness, she must be very particular. No, just Spanish. She has expensive taste, yes. We're getting to get a fancy new distiller set up in the workshop just to try making it. Not putrid, that's true. Then again, they just made it for the first time, so who knows what they did to make sherry. The Abbey could afford that. I was just talking to Eustace about her acquisition budget. I try not to think about money most of the time, to tell you the truth, but I've heard the Superior has access to more than you'd expect. I suppose I wouldn't really know what to expect. Isn't that wrong, though? If it is true, it would certainly mean this Abbey is stuck in a uniquely unfortunate position of having a lot of charity to give and no one to give it to. I'd urge you to quell any Cistercian tendencies. I'm not sure the Church could withstand another order fracturing. That is indeed Catholicism for you. Martha took another whiff of the unfinished wine in her spoon. She wrinkled her nose and emptied the spoon back into the barrel. Anyhow, there's little use in speculating on speculations. We have a distiller, and all I need to worry about is making sure my sherry isn't a disaster. Would you be a dear and find a dealer? I need her to tell me if I'm on the right track with this. Oh, of course. Where would she be this time of day? She does this and that, so I haven't a clue, to tell you the truth. I'm just too old to be given the runaround. I understand. I'll find her. I bowed my head and left the way I'd come. I ran out of voices. That's why she's American. I ran out of voices to do that I know how to do. It turned out I didn't have to go very far. After jogging back up the stairs to the cloister, I decided to check the gardens, where I found Adela and Darcy tending to a row of vegetables. Hedwig! Hello! Hiya! Hello. Martha actually asked me to find you, Adela. Is she meddling with the sherry again? She's going to ruin it, I swear! Ooh, be careful. You go all term. Oh, no, I'm not doing the Latin. Sherry is very important and delicate. For sherry, I will swear. Fair enough. Goodbye, my friends. I will speak to you once I have walloped some sense into Sister Martha. With words, Hedwig, do not worry. The old word, wallop. That is correct. I would never hit anyone. Although, over sherry. No, that's not funny. It's just a little funny. Because really, I would not. That's what makes it funny to say you would. I get it. I suppose we have very different senses of humor. Adela gave a little approving nod to Darcy, then turned to leave. Would you mind having me finish what she was having me finish with? Oh, of course. What can I do? Pick the rest of these carrots with me and put them in a box. Yeah, carrots. She pointed at a wooden crate half filled with plump reddish vegetables. Alright then, you gotta push them down and yank them out like this. Darcy flopped to her knees and gripped a clump of green stems that were poking up from the soil. She pointed at a little purple mound poking up out of the dirt. Watch this. Oh, this is pre-orange carrots. She pressed the carrot into the earth, then pulled it out of the ground with remarkable ease, and tossed it several yards into the crate. Gigi, you try. Come on, noodle arms. I knelt down gingerly in the soil, a little apprehensive about getting my frock dirty. I rummaged around in the nearest patch of greens and traced my finger down a stem till I uncovered the top of a carrot and pressed. Nothing happened. Press harder! I gave it my all. The resistance finally broke after a few difficult seconds, and I nearly fell face first into the carrot patch. Oh, there you go. Now pull it out. I regained my composure and removed the carrot from the earth quite easily. Why does that work? You're breaking off some of the little roots holding it in place. That's miraculous. I never would have guessed. I was reading Steam reviews for this to see if it gets gay, and like the second one down is just Welsh nun creature. There she is! A nun is a kind of animal. Just works. Blanche, you're wonderful. Thank God for Blanche. She continued harvesting carrots, and I followed suit. There's certainly a lot here. We need as much food as we can get for winter starch and carrots we couldn't have. I hadn't thought about that. What else do you grow for winter? Peach, sprouts, crush, parsnips. Goodness. Leeks, celiac, beans, beets. And you take care of all of it? With help, but yes, I do. Remarkable. That's very admirable. I'd like to help. Or people help me, they help out. It's a very good feeling indeed. I picked up the pace a little, slightly more confident about my carrot-pulling abilities all of a sudden. Aww. And you tend to the animals as well. Yes. You certainly got a lot of responsibilities. There's actually not that many animals. I think even just a few ducks might be too much for me to handle. Unlike Eustace, who could fight every duck. Ducks are friendly, should I help? Other than that, we just have sheep, and that's a shared responsibility. Really? With who? A man from the village, spent some time up here in a little house, helps with sheep. Didn't know there were others living up on the hill with us. On this hill, just him, and he's a bit of walk from us. It was strange having a more in-depth conversation with Darcy. Her odd manner of speaking, I must confess, had belied the thoughtfulness with which she listened and responded. Her words came thick and slow like treacle. Oh, slow. I'm doing them, like, really fast. And sometimes it felt like any of her emotions they carried were delayed. Nonetheless, it was clear she was lucid and intelligent. For now. Just as much, if not more so, than anyone else I had spent time with so far at the convent. So I picked my next questions carefully. It was a rare privilege to see you in the process of having a vision yesterday. Oh, right, yes. Was you now? Yes! That's a beautiful and powerful thing. I wish I could remember them. Eustace writes them down for you, doesn't she? Yes, but it's not the same. I do appreciate her doing that, but I wish I could keep track of them myself. You don't remember them at all afterward? Not at all. You know, the one you had yesterday was rather prophetic. Already? Yes. I mean, fire, goat. It's perfectly accurate. Hee 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 hee. I predicted your prank. Darcy, would you believe me if I told you that wasn't a practical joke I came up with? That I really saw a monster of some sort? I'm having this conversation over a box of carrots. And a goat? Probably not, but go on. I promise you I did. Well, you know me, I like to think this place is haunted. But I'm not sure if I've seen anything like that. It's a little haunted here, but not goat sacrifice haunted. So that would be strange. I suppose the practical joke's more plausible. But if it wasn't your prank, whose could it have been? Well, that's just the thing. I don't know. An idea came to me in a flash. Do you think I could read Eustace's full journal about yesterday's vision? Perhaps there had been some other clue written down there that I had missed. Something that could help me determine what had really happened. Or at the very least, comfort me with the knowledge that I was not truly being pursued by ghosts or devils. Dunno. You have to ask her. Really? It's your vision. It's Eustace's writing. Fair enough. There was a long pause. Long pause while I take a sip. That was the end of that matter, evidently. So, does the Abbey keep any goats? No goats, just sheep and ducks. I was just curious, honestly. I was under the impression that goats were a common fixture at Abbeys. Goats? Moira just gave us goat's cheese and said Darcy looked after the goats, right? That happened, right? Am I going insane? I feel like that we would just establish that there were goats here. The same books that had led me to assume that the abbey I lived in would follow some sort of structural plan had also painted a rather specific picture of their inhabitants. Not having any goats to tend to was at least not as egregious as condensing the hours. But it did complicate my understanding of what I had seen the night prior. Then again, I suppose Darcy would have noticed if a goat had gone missing. Would you like to meet one? Meet a goat? Yes, but because I can probably arrange that if you want to see a goat. They're very sweet and funny. Last time I saw a goat chew to my sleeve, took a big hole out of it, and I had to get Moira to show it back up. Then I had one sleeve with less fabric than the other sleeve, so it looks funny. That does sound fun. But no, I was actually curious, because if I had seen a goat, where would it have come from? An impish grin crept over Darcy's face as she loaded carrots into the crate. I think I know where this is going. You've been having on a bit, aren't you? We're working on a new practical joke. No. See, I knew you had to be joking when you said you saw a goat, because there are no goats here, so you couldn't have seen one. But if you really wanted to get your hands on one for a new prank... Sister Hedwig! I looked around to see Angela looming over the vegetable patch, looking as icy as ever. Yes, Sister Angela? You were meant to be working in the library today. Instead, I've been looking all over for you. Oh, yes, well, I finished my work early. I'm sure you must have done a superlative job. Superior wishes to speak to you before luncheon. I could taste the poison in those words, and I almost enjoyed it. Almost. I'm sure she wants to know how my first day of real work went. I was just helping Darcy with the carrots, and then I'll be on my way. I'm to take you to her now. I stood up, brushing my hands off my robe. I think I know my way to her office, if you'd like to exchange places. No, I don't think so. I was given a job to do. Yes, well, I was too. Oh? You're taking orders from Darcy now? It wasn't really an order. Sure, I have here and take it from here. Wonderful. Let us be going then. I tossed Darcy an apologetic glance that I hope she caught as I followed Angela away from the garden. We walked in silence to the Superior's office. Angela's presence usually made me feel meek, but something about helping Darcy had given me a small boost of confidence. I spent the walk imagining several witty and biting things I could say to Angela if she happened to speak. She didn't, of course, not until we arrived at the Superior's door. Well, have a productive meeting. She made a show of turning her on her heel and walking away briskly. I thought of a few more clever things I could have said before clearing my mind as best as I could, and knocked on the door. After yesterday's arguments with the Superior, I had resolved to be as polite and demure as possible. I could feel my voice going. I think we might be approaching the end of today. I would speak to the Superior with the respect her station demanded, and I would save any pithiness for an imagined Sister Angela. The door swung open, and the Superior ushered me inside. We exchanged basic pleasantries before diving right into the heart of the matter. How was your first day of work in the library? It was more tumultuous than I expected, Your Reverence. Really now, I wouldn't have expected Eustace to be a particularly difficult person for you to work with. I suppose I have a lot to live up to. Everyone's expectations make me nervous. I sympathize. Try not to let it bother you, however. The most important expectations here are mine. Yes, Your Reverence. Try not to be nervous. You are performing admirably for me so far. Of course, Your Reverence. There's no need to overcorrect for your insolent outbursts yesterday. Speak to me as you would anyone else. Yes, Yes. I bowed my head a little. I did say revenants. Why did I do that? Truth be told, I was getting increasingly frustrated. Revenants is cool. It does sound like she's like gone scorched earth or something. Truth be told, I was getting increasingly frustrated with how arbitrary every little application of tradition around here was. I was being admonished for speaking properly now after I had been so rude. Honestly. Anyway, we're going to take a little walk. Right now? Yes, it's time you meet the accused. Won't it be fairly obvious that we're gone? Everyone else will be finishing the morning work, preparing luncheon. Outside of creeping away to the hospitalum in the dead of night, there's no time like the present for us to leave unannounced. I see. The idea did not thrill me. Then again, speaking with James had been my idea in the first place, so I had little room to object. As the soup is the ghost. Typo ghost. Does anyone else know? Of course not. She opened the door and held it for me. In the best circumstances at this point in time, the Abbey felt strange and alien to me still. Knowing that we were attempting to slip out with anyone noticing, however, made the place feel actively hostile. I jumped at every mid-morning shadow and held my breath passing every blind corner, even though the Superior walked ahead of me. The buildings seemed to be more disrepaired the further from the cloister we got. The wall protecting this side of the Abbey was downright shabby. Bricks lay in the grass, and moss was bursting out of the mortar. Is the hospitalum not part of the Abbey? It was built much further away than is useful, I must say. Are you all right? You look a bit pale. It had just struck me that I was about to leave the confines of the Abbey, hardly a day after being ripped from my cell. Compared to my organized existence in that small room, the corridors and cloisters already felt like a whole new world. Stepping beyond those walls felt like a whole new level of transgression. I'm all right. Damn. We're just out in the middle of fucking nowhere. If nothing else, it was quite beautiful out here. Now that we have breached the walls of the Abbey, I think that's where we're going to stop. We are going to stop here, enjoying the beautiful hill. And I'm gonna let my voice rest because ow. Thank you everyone for coming along and watching and chatting and having a look. And the previous VOD is up on my YouTube channel now, and this one will be going up quite soon, sooner than it took to get the previous one up because I was having a fun adventure in Adobe Premiere. Every time I use that program, I completely forget how to use it. But I think I have all my settings working, so I'm all good. This will be up soon, and probably be streaming again this time or in 8 days. This time next week or in 8 days. Saturday or Sunday morning for me. I'll see you guys then. Thank you very much.